Morning. Two lines of questioning. I asked previously questions in respect of the organisations that have pass holders here, lobbyist companies, and I've readily signed off on people that I know, Pilots Association, other groups, and I was told that this information cannot be provided. I don't necessarily need to know who sponsored whom. I'm just trying to get an idea of which lobbyists, which organisations have access to the building. Is it still the position of the DPS that information is confidential and cannot be released? And if so, I'm trying to understand why that is, because if someone's in the building, presumably they're here with a pass, it's self-evident, but to get a list, I thought would have been a matter of public record.
My view would be, Senator Xenophon, that given that parliamentarians sponsor those lobbyists, it is information of directly relevant to the work of parliamentarians, and therefore isn't necessarily a matter of public interest.
So it's not reasonable to find out who has access to the building. I don't need to know who sponsors who. I'm happy to tell people who I've sponsored, but it's not. You're saying that we won't know who has access to this building. That's a matter that is confidential, yet when those people are in the building, it's pretty self-evident who they are.
Well, it's important, with respect to pass holders, it's important for us to understand that the pass holders are being vouched for, and that they don't present an overt security risk to the organisation. So it's really, for the information we have is for the purposes of identifying who that person is in the event of an issue.
This is not a security issue. This is an issue of is it not reasonable? You've claimed essentially public interest immunity claim, saying that the list of pass holders is not to be published, is not to be made available. I'm still trying to understand. This is not about who sponsored them. This is not about security issues, because presumably they wouldn't get the pass unless they're being vouched for. So they've passed that threshold. I'm just trying to understand why it's not publicly available.
Senator Xenophon, this may facilitate. I'm not sure that Senator Xenophon's asking for the specific names of the individuals, but perhaps the organisations that they represent, that whether it be as a lobbyist or anyone else that's got access.
Well, if I could just indicate that there is a broader security issue, Senator Xenophon, because if we publish a list or make available a list publicly of all the organisations that have access to the building, that could then flag to someone who wishes to do harm an opportunity to maybe acquire or procure a pass or use a false identity to get into the building. So that is one aspect.
That wasn't put to me in any answers.
Well, I'm indicating that now. If you allow us to consider this, Senator Xenophon, that maybe we might consider whether the list can be made available privately, of the list of, but I think we'd need just to consider that and the implications of that.
No, it's just a question in the sense that it's obvious who they are when they're in the building, and irrespective of whether it's published or not, it wouldn't be too hard to work out who, which organisations have access.
But let's not make it easier for people to identify organisations that have access to the building.
Sure. My other question, I won't take that any further, my other question to Mr Stefanik is in respect of the Parliament House security system, the tender, and I understand the constraints and what you can and cannot say. Are you able to say that it's down, has that been finalised, that contract or that tender? I understand it's quite a significant tender in the context of this building. Can you tell us where we are at in broad terms on that without in any way compromising the process?
Yes, so the process has not yet been finalised. Final negotiations are still underway with the first preferred bidder. There was a last-minute underbid that had been provided. We understand it was an underbid.
So just explain that to the thousands of people listening online.
Yes.
An underbid is that it's a bid for it's a lesser. They've actually said we'll come back to you. We can do this cheaper.
It's an amount less than originally submitted. So that information has been provided to our probity advisor for final advice before making any further progress with that tender.
Well, hang on. Are you saying that there may be, I'm trying to understand the process appropriately, and I disclose that it's something that I've met with you in just general terms, I think, and I'm grateful for that because, it's obviously a big contract, but when there are two parties who are preferred, why would you not allow them both to trim their price so that you have that competitive tension, so that we get, assuming all things being equal, if someone can deliver the goods at a better price and saves taxpayers money, there's nothing improper about that, is there, if there's still a transparent process internally?
My understanding is under the procurement rules, and I will obviously go back and check, and if any information I provide is incorrect, I will seek to clarify. But my understanding is, as part of the tender evaluation process, as part of a first pass, the preferred tenderers will be identified. That is, that they're the tenderers that would be qualified to continue any further negotiations, and then the remaining bidders are excluded. Within that, there is a first preferred tenderer, and negotiations with that first preferred tenderer need to be exhausted before recourse to the second preferred tenderer.
So Mr. Stefanik, what you're saying is that you've got a first preferred tenderer. If the second preferred tenderer comes in with an underbid, as you put it, saving taxpayers potentially, say, millions of dollars, that person won't get a look in until you've exhausted your negotiations with the first preferred tenderer, even though the second preferred tenderer is saying, we've been able to recalibrate our bid to save millions of dollars, so they don't get a look in because you're going down the path of talking to the first preferred tenderer.
That is exactly why we've sent... That question is exactly why we referred it to a probity advisor, Senator.
Okay, but you can understand there'll be taxpayers wondering where, as long as the process is fair, all things being equal, if someone can save taxpayers a few $1 million for an equivalent security system, although I think there are differences between the two technically, as I understand it, but if it fulfils the criteria in terms of the technical capacity and specifications and the like, you're saying that the second preferred tenderer, which may be millions of dollars cheaper, won't necessarily get a look in?
Potentially, yes. Potentially, yes.
So as in potentially no, they won't get a look in, or potentially yes, they won't get it? Sorry, I'm trying to understand.
I guess what I can say, Senator Xenophon, is I guess over DPS is particularly concerned that it manages its procurement appropriately, given recent history in that regard.
Sure.
And for my part, I am making absolutely certain that we dot every I and cross every T. And I would not want to make a decision that would later be... Sure,
I understand that, but very, and it won't take much longer, Chair, but what I'm trying to understand is this. Do our procurement rules take into account the benefits of local jobs, local supply, in terms of Australian content, Australian innovation and the like? Is that clear, or how do you weigh that up?
I'm not entirely across the detail of the tender evaluation process and what factors are taken into account with that process itself. That I can take on notice and provide.
Okay, but what you're saying, when will we hear from the probity advisor? When are you expecting to hear from the probity advisor?
Very shortly.
Which is a week?
Within the week.
Okay. I'm not sure what the answer is to this, so I don't know, through you, Mr. President, if the writs are issued, does that mean the negotiations are suspended, or this is one of these things that you can still proceed with?
It would continue. My view would be that this is an operational matter.
Sure. I'm just trying to understand what the process is. So in summary, you'll hear from the probity advisor in the next week. But as matters now currently stand, if there is an equivalent tender in terms of equivalence in terms of technical competence and capacity, because they've put in a new bid which is lower than the other bid, and it may be several $1 million lower, you may not be able to look at that because of the way the procurement process works.
Potentially, yes.
But nothing's been signed, no contracts have been signed though, have they?
No.
Okay. You can understand my concern about that, don't you? And hopefully the chair's concerned about it as well.
Oh, my concerns are your concerns, Senator Xenophon.
Thank you very